Hello, everyone. So, welcome to your lesson on parasites, or part of your lesson on parasites. I'm one of these weird people that I find parasites absolutely fascinating. So, it's one of my favorite topics. And we have the amazing Lise Hansen with us today. So, Lise qualified as a veterinary surgeon in 1994 in Copenhagen, and she's worked in the UK ever since and has since specialised in homeopathy and very much a whole animal approach. She has also published a very well known and fantastic book that I would recommend to anyone. It's so easy to read, it's so simply laid out. I think it's something that everyone with a dog should just be, or a cat should be handed as soon as they get them, to be honest. And it's the complete book of cat and dog health, and it was published in 2019. And there's a link in the resources section for anybody, and it's really inexpensive as well. It's not an expensive book, so yeah, it's one that should be on all of our bookshelves, in my opinion. So we're going to start off with worms, Lise. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm just going to go through kind of the main questions that people ask, really, I think
Mhm.
that. So what are the pros and cons of routine wormers, and compared with the idea of sort of targeted treatment and fecal testing? Because there's kind of two different ways that people tend to approach worm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. And I think for once I can give a very clear answer that doesn't start with, this is complex and it depends. I would say very clearly that there are no arguments for routinely worming, really. I mean, there is no difference there's no reason why there should be a difference in approach to worming and treating worm infestations in humans or in dogs. Humans can get worms. Most people who have young children have experienced them getting worms, and often the whole family getting worms, and then we treat them. But we
Yeah,
don't go around giving our child a wormer every month or every other month or some other random interval just in case they picked up worms and we haven't noticed yet. We just don't do that.
yeah,
And the only reason that has become a thing is that there was someone who thought that, hang on, there's a product to be sold. Um, I mean, honestly, there is no reason for worming someone that doesn't have worms. And if you worry that your dog may have worms or your cat may have worms, I mean, generally speaking, if we're talking about adult animals, intestinal worms don't really cause problems. Most healthy adult dogs or cats, well, cats are a little bit different depending on how much they hunt, and they may need a worm now and then if they eat mice. But then again, if you see signs of worms, give them a wormer, exactly like you would yourself or your child. But adult dogs, generally speaking, have immune systems strong enough that worms are not an issue. And if they are, either they'll vomit up worms or you'll see worms in their feces, and then you can treat them.
yeah,
The situation where you need to be a little more careful would be with puppies. And until quite recently, we used to always routinely worm puppies and recommend that puppies were routinely wormed because lots of puppies are born with worms or get worms from their mum. But it has seems, I mean, evidence seems to have been growing in recent years that when breeders and new puppy carers test their puppy stools without automatically worming, actually lots of times they don't have worms. So maybe that's because the previous generation was wormed so heavily that they didn't get it from their mum because the mum didn't have worms.
yeah,
But I would still say if you have a pup, I would either test its stool a couple of times or worm routinely. But for an adult dog, there is no argument for worming routinely. Um,
yeah,
and I wouldn't even, I mean, I hear lots of people say that, they're going to stop the routine worming, so they're going to test their adult healthy dog stool every 3 months. And I think that's also a little bit ridiculous. Um, you know, I mean, do you test your own stool every 3 months to see if you've got worms?
And again, I think it's always dependent on, isn't it? And I think, I mean, with us, we actually had a worm infestation last year. Now, I've never wormed my dogs and we've never had a problem. So exactly like you, it's never been um, but we were noticing that our dogs had some diarrhea. So we were like, okay, and we use Vet Lab. So for anybody that, it's really, you don't even have to take your dogs to the vets. They just send you a little pot through the
Mm,
post. It's great. But I actually, through talking to Vicky, I actually got rid of their hookworm. So it was a hookworm infestation, and it was all three dogs. So I don't, but they are farm dogs that we live in a very rural area. They probably eat the most disgusting things and poo from foxes and God knows what else all the time. That's probably their normal routine. So, but we actually treated it with Vermex and diatomaceous earth, which was incredible. So I didn't even have to use a chemical wormer, which was great.
mm,
Because after talking to Vicky, so there's so many different options as well, still, aren't there, with wormers? It's not like we have to immediately go to because one of my boys is very sensitive gut wise, so the chemical wormers, whenever we have used them in the past, I mean, he just poos blood, bless him. It really does
no,
affect him quite badly. So this was a great other option. So yeah, it
sure.
was really good to know that option was there. And I think that's probably, yeah, how do environmental factors, such as sort of rural versus urban, raw diets, I think that's something that comes up a lot, should be worming dogs more if they're on raw diets. How do those things kind of affect that, Lise, or is
I think intestinal worms in dogs, it's not a dangerous thing. And if there's a problem, you'll notice that there's a problem.
yeah,
With the, exception,
absolutely.
as we just said, of young pups, um, I just wouldn't I just wouldn't worry about it. And
Yeah.
it's only because there's been this culture of regular worming, which is really, I mean, we bought it for that long, but can we put it away now? They got us, we were conned. Um, this is not, again, I think when we talk about these issues, it's important to say that it's not a matter of, a holistic view versus a conventional view. It's just an informed, up-to-date view versus an outdated, old-fashioned, ignorant way of doing things.
Yeah.
And this is absolutely where the conventional experts are. I mean, this is the topic of the day. The chairman of the well, chairperson of the British Veterinary Association last year made a statement, and I think she did it in 21 as well, urging all veterinary surgeons to not use routine treatments against parasites. This routinely treating something that isn't there is damaging to the environment, damaging to the individual, and absolutely pointless, and
Yeah.
shouldn't be done. So it's not like the conventional veterinary wisdom says otherwise. I mean, this is all the
Mainstream
talk at the
veterinary,
moment.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. And again, we should test before we treat. And certainly intestinal worms, because people have been, I don't know, told for so long that worms are something that you should worry about if you have a dog, and have been giving wormers regularly. The question I get, if not every day, then certainly every week at the moment, is okay, but if I'm not going to give the wormers, what should I do so that my dog doesn't get worms? And I really have to bite my tongue, and sometimes I don't manage to not say, but what do you do to not get worms? You know,
That's
I mean,
such a
it's
good
like,
point. Such
but
a
I
good
mean,
point.
there is no need to do anything.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of products being sold, that can be given instead of conventional wormers so that dogs don't get worms. I'm not totally comfortable with that. I think we're kind of
Yeah.
going full circle a little bit on having to buy products to not get
Really good
worms.
point. Yeah, yeah.
Um, I would
And
do
I can
nothing at
imagine a
all.
healthy gut, Lise, in
Yeah,
general. So just eating healthily. I mean, it's the same as us, I can
yeah.
imagine and I did when I did some of the research on kind of parasites and that, I found that there are a huge percentage of people that live with parasites
Mm,
like across the globe with no major problems. There's obviously certain areas that are a bit
mm.
different, but it's yeah, some people can live with worms for the whole of their life with no actual problems. So yeah, it is again it's that fear mongering, isn't it? With
It
being
is. It is. And
yeah,
and and intestinal worms are not generally an issue in adult dogs, so I would just not worry about it at all. And if there are gut issues or if there are signs of worms, then I'm not adverse to using conventional wormers at all. I would just save them for when there are worms.
Yeah.
It seems like, why do we even have to say this? It ought to be
It
obvious.
should be just a, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, definitely. Okay, well, that was a lovely, easy answer. I like that answer.
Yeah,
Yeah, if all things in life were that simple, then it would be
yeah.
quite nice, wouldn't it? So, ticks and fleas. How do you assess a dog's true risk of fleas and ticks rather than just assume all the dogs, very similar kind of question, really, isn't it? That this routine
And
tick
a
and
very
flea
similar
treatment.
situation as well. And again, one where, the powers that be in conventional veterinary medicine are saying, just don't do this blind routine prescribing. It's not something we can afford to do anymore in terms of
Yeah,
environmental health as much as anything else. Um, Fleas, again, I just like to draw the parallel to humans because sometimes we can be so conditioned to something that we can't see the wood for the trees and we just feel like dogs should have wormers, dogs should have flea treatment. But fleas are quite similar to nits and lice, head lice in humans. And unless you're washing your hair in a nit shampoo every Sunday, just in case you've got nits and you didn't know it, I mean, it's that sort of situation again.
yeah,
Fleas, I would absolutely. Fleas is an all or nothing thing. If you're, and it's not the individual animal that gets fleas. I write about this in my book. It's the environment that gets fleas. So if
yeah,
an adult flea is brought into your home, lays eggs, then the home has fleas. And I would use the conventional toxic products that we have to kill every single one of them, so that your home
yeah,
again is flea free. That's difficult to say. So fleas are a bit of all or nothing. And if they're there, I would treat them. If they're not there, I would obviously not do anything at all. That will be my approach. Ticks can be a slightly different situation because there are tick-borne diseases. But again, humans can become severely ill through tick-borne diseases,
yeah.
just like dogs can. So it's not that different. And I'm certainly hugely uncomfortable with some of the products available where the dog is either injected with an insecticide or eats insect poison. I mean, some of those products and the side effects can be horrendous. And the whole idea, I mean, we
It's
can get
horrendous,
tick-borne
isn't it?
diseases.
Well,
Would you eat poison so that your
stuff
skin
that we use
becomes
is
toxic?
banned, isn't it, in so many
It's
kind
yeah,
of,
yeah,
other
yeah,
circles, and yet,
yeah,
because they say it's a
yeah.
smaller amount, it's okay in our animals, which is just,
It has some horrific side effects, and there is some new research showing that some of these products are. I mean, you can measure them in drinking water, you can measure them in streams and rivers. They are banned, like you say, in any other context, so they can only come from pet treatments. There was one horrible study from Switzerland, from a cancer ward a couple of years ago, where they looked to see if these neonicotinoid, it's hard to say, substances could be detected in the children's cerebrospinal fluid, and they were in 100% of it, and it could only come from living with pets who are giving these products. Um,
yeah, it's horrendous,
they
isn't
are
it? Yeah.
carcinogenic. They are so problematic. And we're not going to have them at our disposal. I'm sure in 10 years they'll be banned full stop. But I think for now, at least we should use them with great
Caution.
caution. Use them if there is an issue. Use them um, if you have a problem, but use them to prevent problems is crazy. And that whole word prevention, parasite prevention, prevention sounds healthy. Like you can prevent disease by exercising or eating healthily, or, prevention is normally something that we like prevention. We like to try and prevent illness. But giving poisons, giving wormers or flea treatments or tick treatments, that's not prevention. That's just treatment blindly, given blindly without knowing that the parasite is there. It
Yeah.
doesn't prevent anything. So
And it can cause
it's
so many other things, can it? I mean, just
yeah,
as we were talking, just before, it's it's awful because the last sort of few months with my boy, because of certain situations, he's ended up having quite a few chemicals that he's not actually used to having, because I don't use a lot of these treatments, but because of certain situations within him. And you kind of go down sometimes, even me, I go down to, okay, yeah, well, my vet's told me to do this, so I'm gonna. And now, bless him, he's got a gut that's in dysbiosis, and we're having to
Hmm.
to deal with because, okay, I'm not saying it's 100% the chemicals. We never know 100%, but he's always had a very, very healthy gut. And all of a sudden, after having some of these treatments, he hasn't. So, yeah, we end up preventing one thing and causing another, don't we? Which is really not
Yeah, and
what
it's
we're meant
because
to
we're
do.
using them so blindly and
Blasé.
without care. I
Yeah.
would absolutely, I mean, I don't mind using a conventional wormer if there are worms. I don't
Yes,
mind
exactly.
for now, for lack of other options, really. I would use the parasite treatments that we have
Yeah.
if there are fleas.
Yeah.
Um, but to use them,
Every month or every
yeah,
is just,
no,
yeah.
no. And no
Yeah.
one is really suggesting that anymore. The only people who are suggesting that are the people who produce them.
Yeah.
And if I can say one thing about, if you have a veterinary clinic that encourages these loyalty schemes, where you get maybe even vaccines, but a lot of them include wormers
They
or
do.
or
Yeah.
flea treatments and stuff like that, from the outset, that's just the wrong way to think about this. And it's not
Yeah.
wrong because I feel it's wrong or because it's not holistic. It's wrong because the chairperson of the British Veterinary Association says it's wrong. And she
Yeah.
says that because all the science says it's wrong. That's
Yeah.
not how we think about these things anymore. It was how we did things 10 years ago, but it's not how we do it anymore. We diagnose parasites before we treat. And
Yeah.
there may be exceptions. The two exceptions to this could be ticks. If you are in an area where there are a lot of ticks and there are, tick-borne diseases and you can't avoid ticks, then that could be an argument for some animals at some parts of the year to use some sort of product to try to deter ticks.
Yeah.
And the other possible exception could be lungworm. That there may be situations, if you have a young pup who's had lungworm twice and you could discuss it. But in both of those situations, tick-borne diseases and lungworm, it would have to be the kind of perfect storm. You'd have to be a situation where the individual and the environment and the a lot of factors have to come together in an unfortunate way
Yeah.
to make that
That to
necessary.
happen. Yeah, everyone seems to think, don't they, with ticks, they get really worried about it. And it's not like, not every tick that attaches to your dog has got a disease that
No,
is,
no, no. I mean,
that's
more
we
than
are in
80%
a,
of, yeah, yeah, more than 80% of ticks don't carry anything. And even if it is an infected tick, if you remove
remove it
it in
quickly.
the first 24 hours, it's not going to
Yeah.
transfer disease.
That's what
But
we
again,
tend
it
to do
depends.
here is, it's quite difficult with one of our boys because he's got touch sensitivity. So but the other two is absolutely fine. They're really short haired as well. So they come
Mm.
home and to be honest, in the high tick seasons, we just don't go to areas where we get lots of ticks. We avoid those areas, and I know not everybody can. It does depend on where you are and things, but there are so many other ways that we can avoid these things, aren't they? It's, yeah, it's
And
just
thank you
having
for
a bit
saying
of,
that, because I mean, that what you just said, that's the whole point. We tend to sort of feel entitled, I want to be able to walk with my dog wherever I want to be. And if it means poisoning the dog and my children and myself and the environment, then so be it, because I want the freedom to, let my dog roam free in meadows and forests. I mean, it just becomes a little bit crazy.
yeah,
There's a lot of really practical things we can do exactly like that.
yeah.
Maybe in the summer, don't go in the forest. Go to the beach, go on a
I
sports
think in the
field, or go
UK
wherever you
we're even
can.
more entitled, aren't we? Because if you live in certain places in the world, like, I mean, in Spain, when we lived in Spain, there are times of the year you cannot go out because of the caterpillars, because the
Mm,
processionary
mm.
they will kill your dog or your cat. I mean, that they're horrendous. There's none of this kind of, well, I want my dog to, and it's like, well, no, they'll kill them. So you literally just can't walk your dog in those areas. And I mean, I can imagine in Australia, they don't just go, wow, it's this season for this deadly spider. We're going to just do it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah,
But we're very
yeah.
lucky in this country, aren't we? We're actually a very safe country, for that
Yeah,
type
no,
of thing.
absolutely.
So
But it's a slightly crazy backward approach when once you start to think about it. I want to be able to do everything, so I'm just gonna absolutely poison my dog so that we can do it.
yeah,
It doesn't make sense.
no, it
And
doesn't.
there's a lot of steps you can take, but again, it depends. Like you said, it depends if you live in a forest and you've got five I don't know, Bernese mountain dogs. It may be difficult to make sure that you pick out every
Exactly.
tick
Yeah,
every time you've been out. But if you have a tiny little light-skinned, short-haired dog, maybe just keep them on a lead in the forest and try to walk
yeah,
them somewhere else.
yeah,
Keep your grass short. There's lots of things that we can do. The
yeah.
things
There
that
really
we also
are.
do for ourselves. When I was young, children used to run around with bare feet in long grass. We don't do that now because there are ticks and it's not safe.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I'm not going to walk around in long grass with shorts on if I know there's ticks
no,
around. I'm going to put a pair of
no.
trousers on at least,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then not
yeah,
walk
yeah.
in the long grass if I can help it. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
And
definitely.
very simple measures like that can help for dogs as well. If you keep them on the path until you're out of that area, or that it's
Yeah.
very often easy to navigate those things in a way that doesn't involve poisons.
Yeah. And
And
it's
for
living with
lungworm as well.
nature, isn't it? I think nature can teach us
Yeah,
so much if we live with nature instead of this
yeah.
constant, fear of nature, and actually understanding it a little bit better and living with it instead of, this constant
Exactly.
sort of,
And that's what this is all about, isn't it? Understanding the situation, understanding the factors that influence it, and just making common sense
yes,
decisions based on
absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think we've covered all of the just by chatting, which has just been lovely. So yeah, it's been so informative, and I'm sure people have found it really helpful. So yeah, thank you so much. And
It's a great pleasure.
we hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Take care.